Introduction. The light between worlds there are moments in life when the ordinary suddenly turns extraordinary. A single choice, a single breath, or a single step can split the world in two, and once that happens, nothing is ever the same. 14-year-old Arya Frost had always felt that something was calling her beyond the ordinary. In the quiet town of Grey Hollow, she lived a simple life: school, chores, and evenings by the fireplace. Yet, at night, she would feel it. A faint warmth in her chest, a whisper in the wind, a light shimmering in the corner of her eye. Most people called it imagination. Arya knew it was something more. Her world changed on a night that began like any other. The sky above Grey Hollow shimmered and trembled, and a thin, golden tear appeared, splitting the stars. Arya's heart raced as the air around her seemed to hum with life. A voice whispered her name, and for the first time she felt that the stories her mother had told her, the ones about hidden worlds, guardians, and unseen forces, were real. Through that tear stepped Kale, a boy from a place she could not yet understand. His eyes carried secrets, danger, and hope. He told her that her life and the balance of all worlds depended on her. Arya did not understand yet, but something deep inside her stirred a courage she did not know she had, a spark that had always been waiting to ignite. This is the story of courage, destiny, and discovery. It is a journey through shadow and light, through worlds that overlap with our own, where every choice matters, and every heart holds power. Arya will learn that bravery is not the absence of fear, but the will to step forward anyway. She will face challenges that will test her mind, heart, and soul. And she will discover that the greatest magic does not lie in spells or objects. It lies in the choices we make, the love we give, and the light we carry within. This is her story. This is the beginning of the journey between worlds. The moment she steps through the tear, there is no turning back. And neither is there for you. Support the channel by subscribing, liking the video, and leaving your valuable suggestions in the comments. And remember to press the bell icon to stay inspired. Chapter 1. The tear in the sky. Arya Frost had always known she was different, though she never fully understood why. In the quiet town of Grey Hollow, everything seemed ordinary. Brick houses lined cobblestone streets, chimneys puffed gray smoke into a colorless sky, and the people moved like clockwork, living lives carefully measured in hours and chores. Arya, however, felt a pull toward something invisible, something waiting beyond the familiar world she saw every day. It began on a night that was meant to be ordinary. The wind carried a chill that made the old trees shiver, and the stars above were faint, hidden behind thick clouds. Arya lay in her small room, staring at the ceiling, restless. Her mother had already gone to bed, leaving the house silent except for the soft tick of a worn grandfather clock. Normally, nights like this felt safe, but tonight the air felt heavy, thick with expectation. A strange warmth spread through Arya's chest, like the spark of a candle lit within her heart. At first, she thought it was her imagination, just the quiet loneliness of her room playing tricks on her. But then, the ceiling above her shimmered. A pale golden light began to stretch across the room, pulsing like a heartbeat. Arya sat up, wide-eyed, and watched as the light condensed into a thin line of tear in the fabric of the night sky itself. The tear wavered, alive, as though breathing. Through it, she glimpsed shapes that defied understanding. Towering forests made of silver, rivers that glowed like molten light, and creatures moving gracefully in the distance, neither human nor animal. A soft whisper echoed in her ears, so faint she thought she imagined it. "You are chosen," it said. Arya froze. Her throat felt dry, her heartbeat pounding. "Chosen for what?" she whispered. There was no answer. The whisper faded, leaving only the golden tear stretching wider, inviting her. Fear coiled around her chest, but curiosity, that dangerous spark she had always carried, burned brighter. Her fingers reached toward the glowing line, hesitant yet compelled, and when she touched it, the world seemed to shift beneath her. In an instant, the room dissolved. Walls melted into streams of light. The floor vanished beneath her feet, and gravity no longer held her. Arya felt weightless, suspended in a space that was neither solid nor empty, filled only with a humming, vibrating energy. She felt as though she were being pulled toward something vast, something ancient, and she wanted to resist, but her body moved as if guided by a force far greater than her own. Then a figure appeared through the tear. He was a boy, no older than Arya, with stormy gray eyes that held a mixture of fear and urgency. His dark hair whipped around his face as if caught in an invisible wind, and his clothes seemed strange, like they belonged to another time, another world. "You shouldn't be here," the boy shouted, reaching toward her. His voice was panicked, but there was a calm in his eyes, a certainty that came from experience. "If they see you, if they know, it will be dangerous." Arya tried to speak, but her words faltered. "Who are you? What is this place?" He hesitated for a moment, studying her, then nodded sharply. "My name is Kale. You're in the space between worlds. This tear, it should not be open. And you?" He hesitated again, glancing at the glowing mark on her wrist that had appeared moments ago. "You are the reason it is." Arya looked down, startled. There, glowing faintly on her skin, was a symbol she had never seen before. It shimmered like gold dust, etched into the surface of her wrist, radiating warmth and power. She didn't understand, but instinctively she knew it was tied to her. Kale grabbed her hand. Suddenly, "We have no time. You must come with me." His grip was firm, not cruel, and though panic clawed at her, there was trust in his eyes. Arya's pulse raced, and without fully understanding why, she allowed herself to be pulled toward the tear. The moment she stepped through, the world exploded into color. The air smelled of metal and flowers, wind and rain. Light flowed like liquid across the ground, illuminating a forest with trees taller than any she had ever seen. Their trunks shimmered silver, their leaves glowed faintly like embers in the dark. Strange creatures moved between the trunks. Some had wings of glass, others had long, twisting limbs, and all of them watched her with eyes that seemed to pierce into her soul. Arya stumbled, trying to comprehend the impossible. This isn't real," she whispered, but deep inside, she felt a quiet knowing it was more real than anything she had ever known. Kale kept pulling her forward, urgency etched into his features. "They are coming," he said. "The shadows, they hunt anyone with the light. You are the only one who carries it now." Arya's heart skipped. "The light? Me?" "Yes," Kale said, his voice steady despite the tension. "The mark you bear is the sign of a seeker. Someone who can travel between worlds, someone who can balance the light and the shadow. But it comes with a price. Many have tried before you, and failed." Ermine spun. She was 14, a girl from a small, quiet town. She had never held power, never fought battles, never dreamed of destiny. And yet here she was, running through a forest that shimmered with impossible colors, hunted by creatures she didn't yet understand, and carrying a light she had never chosen. The shadows arrived before she could ask more questions. Dark, shifting forms, neither solid nor fully invisible, slithered through the forest, moving silently yet faster than the wind. They circled around, seeking, testing. Arya could feel their cold, hungry gaze, and fear threatened to paralyze her. Kale stopped suddenly, turning to her. "Focus. The light is yours. It is protection, but only if you believe in it." Arya looked at the glowing mark on her wrist. She took a deep breath, closing her eyes, and let the warmth spread through her body. Suddenly, a barrier of pure light erupted around them, pushing the shadows back. Hissing and swirling, they retreated slightly, but Arya knew they would return. Kale gave her a small, encouraging smile. "You're stronger than you think. But this is only the beginning." As they continued through the forest, Arya realized one thing clearly. Her life, as she had known it, was over. The quiet days of Grey Hollow, the safety of ordinary life, the comfort of ignorance, te vergone. She was stepping into something vast, dangerous, and beautiful, something that would test her courage, her heart, and the limits of her understanding. And yet, despite the fear, a spark of excitement bloomed in her chest. She was not just a girl from a small town anymore. She was a seeker, a traveler between worlds, a bearer of light. The tear in the sky had chosen her, and she would answer. Chapter 2. Kale's warning Arya's hands still tingled with the warmth of the light, the strange mark glowing faintly on her wrist, like a promise she didn't yet understand. The forest around her pulsed with magic. Every leaf shimmered, every shadow shifted, and every sound felt alive. She followed Kale through twisted paths that seemed to move under their feet, guided by instinct more than memory. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. She still couldn't believe what had happened, still trying to make sense of the impossible. A tear in the sky, a glowing symbol, and creatures made of shadows that could nearly touch them in a moment. Kale didn't answer immediately. His eyes were sharp, scanning the forest as if he could see the unseen. Finally, he said, "You need to understand something before we go any further. This world, the one you're seeing now, is not the only one. It is one of many, and all of them are connected. Some are safe, some are dangerous, and some are controlled by forces that would destroy everything you love if they could." Arya swallowed. "Connected? How?" Kale sighed. "I don't know everything yet, but I know enough. Every world has its own rules, its own guardians, and its own balance. And the shadows, the ones who attacked you, they exist to break that balance. They feed on fear, confusion, and weakness. And now, because of the light you carry, they are coming for you, specifically." Arya stared at her glowing wrist. "Me? But I didn't do anything. I'm just—" "Me." Kale shook his head. "The light doesn't choose who you are. It chooses who you could become. You carry it because you can protect it. But it will also make you a target." Ermine spun. 14 years of ordinary life, and now she was the target of creatures that had no faces, no names, and no mercy. She had never even held a sword or defended herself from more than a scraped knee, and now she was supposed to be powerful. Kale noticed her hesitation. "I know it's overwhelming," he said softly. "It would be for anyone. But fear is a tool, not a cage. You must learn to control it, to guide it. The light responds to intention, not strength. Right now, your fear is part of it. That's why it protected you back there." Arya tried to calm a racing heart. The truth in Kale's words made sense in a strange way, even though it frightened her. "What happens if I fail?" she whispered. Kale's face darkened. "Then the shadows win. Then the worlds start to unravel. You could lose everything you care about. But failing is not an option, Arya. You've already been chosen, whether you like it or not. Now you have to step forward." They walked in silence for a few minutes, the forest shifting subtly around them. Arya noticed that the shadows moved differently here, less threatening, more like watchers than hunters. Strange creatures peeked from behind trees. Some resembled deer with luminous antlers. Others had eyes that glowed like lanterns. None approached them, but all seemed to observe with curiosity. Kale finally stopped near a small clearing, where a faint stream ran silver under the strange light of the sky. He turned to her. "We need to find a safe place. Somewhere you can rest, and somewhere I can explain more." Arya nodded, though sleep felt impossible. Her mind was full of questions. "Why me? Why now? How do I even begin to do what you say?" Kale looked at her with seriousness. "Because the balance of these worlds is fragile. The light chooses those who can carry it. But it is not easy. You must learn to trust it. And you must learn to trust yourself. The sooner you accept your role, the better chance we have." He crouched near the stream, cupping water in his hands. "Here. Drink. You'll need strength. The journey ahead is long, and you cannot do it without focus and energy." Arya knelt beside him and drank the cool, shimmering water. As it touched her lips, a strange clarity spread through her mind. The fear and confusion didn't disappear, but they no longer felt overwhelming. For the first time, she felt a flicker of confidence, small but real. Kale's eyes softened slightly. Arya's curiosity began to rise above her fear. "Listen to it!" "How?" "You pay attention," Kale said simply, "to your thoughts, your instincts, your heart. Every choice, every reaction matters. The shadows are drawn to doubt and hesitation. If you can act with purpose, even small, deliberate purpose, you can hold the light strong enough to protect yourself." Arya absorbed his words, letting the strange forest around her fade into the background of her mind. She focused on the warmth of her mark, the quiet strength that pulsed beneath her skin. She could feel it, subtle but real, like a heartbeat syncing with her own. Kale studied her carefully. "You think, you remember, and you prepare. I will teach you more in the morning." Arya nodded, her eyelids heavy. She wanted to ask more questions, many questions, but exhaustion claimed her, pulling her into a deep, dreamless sleep. Her dreams were strange. She wandered through endless corridors of light and shadow. Faces whispered her name, and the sky shimmered with doors she could not open. Sometimes she glimpsed Kale, running alongside her, pulling her forward. Other times, the shadows loomed closer, their smoke-like forms swirling and hissing, always just beyond reach. She woke once or twice, heart racing, only to find Kale watching over her, calm and steady. When she awoke fully, dawn had broken, casting a soft, golden glow across the forest. Birds with feathers of silver sang strange songs, and the stream sparkled as if it were filled with liquid starlight. Kale was already awake, standing near the edge of the clearing, eyes scanning the horizon. "Morning," he said quietly. The words hit her harder than the shadows had the night before. There truly was no turning back. She had crossed into a new world, marked by the light, and hunted by forces she barely understood. Every step from now on mattered. She met Kale's gaze. I'm ready," she said, her voice firmer than she expected. Kale gave her a small, approving nod. Together, they stepped out of the clearing, deeper into the forest, leaving behind what remained of her old life. Arya felt the light pulse beneath her skin, steady and bright. Somewhere in the distance, the shadows stirred, sensing her movement. But she no longer felt paralyzed by fear. She had a guide, a purpose, and a spark of courage she had never known before. The journey had truly begun. Chapter 3. The door of light. The forest seemed endless, stretching in every direction, twisting and turning as if it were alive. Arya followed Kale cautiously, feeling the pulsing warmth of the light beneath her wrist. The mark was steady now, like a heartbeat she could rely on. Yet, despite the calm it offered, the forest whispered secrets she did not understand. Leaves shimmered with silver dust, and shadows darted between the trees, watching her every move. "Where are we going?" she asked again. Her voice sounded small against the vastness of the forest. Kale's eyes scanned the horizon, to the door of light. "It's the only safe way to reach the next world. Without it, we would be trapped here, or worse." Arya felt her stomach twist. "The next world? You mean another one, like the one I came through?" Kale nodded. "Yes. The worlds are connected, but only through specific paths. The tier you came through was unstable. If it closed, you would have been trapped forever. The door of light, however, is permanent. For now, it will allow you to travel safely, but even safe paths can be dangerous. If the shadows follow us," Arya shivered. She had begun to understand that danger was never far from them. Even when the forest seemed calm, even when the strange creatures glanced at them without hostility, she could feel the shadows lingering, just beyond sight. Fear prickled at the edges of her mind, but she forced herself to focus. The light was her anchor. They walked in silence for a time, the only sounds the rustle of the shimmering leaves and the soft babble of a silver stream winding through the trees. Every step made her heart pound, but also made her feel alive in a way she had never known. Finally, Kale stopped beside a clearing where the air shimmered with golden energy. A faint outline of a doorway hovered in the middle of the space. It was made of pure light, a frame that glowed with a warmth that reminded her of sunlight through glass. "This is it," Kale said. "The door of light. It will take us to the next world." Arya stepped closer, mesmerized. She could feel the energy of the doorway calling to her, singing in tones she could not name. Her hand itched to reach out and touch it, but she hesitated. "It looks impossible," she whispered. Kale smiled faintly. "It does. That's the point. The worlds beyond are not ordinary. The door tests those who pass through it. Only those who carry the light and believe in it can cross safely." Arya swallowed, trying to steady her racing heart. "And if I fail, then the shadows catch you," Kale said simply, his voice serious. "And you will be trapped or worse. That's why you must focus. That's why you must trust the light." The boy's words sent a chill down her spine. She had never felt so unprepared in her life. She was only 14. And yet here she was, about to step into a doorway to an unknown world, guided by a boy she barely knew, hunted by faceless shadows. The enormity of it pressed on her chest, but alongside it was a spark of determination. Arya glanced at Kale. "Will you go first?" Kale shook his head. "No. You go first. I'll guide you. The light responds to courage. It responds to belief. You have to trust yourself." She nodded, taking a deep breath. The warmth from her wrist spread through her body, a soft, steady pulse that seemed to synchronize with her heartbeat. She raised her hand and stepped toward the door. The moment she crossed its threshold, the world shifted. Light cascaded over her, and she felt as if she were falling and flying at the same time. The forest disappeared, replaced by a space that shimmered with countless stars and streaks of color. The air was thick with possibility, alive with energy she could feel in her bones. She opened her eyes and gasped. The world beyond the door was breathtaking. Floating islands hovered in the air, rivers glowed with silver light, and mountains rose impossibly high, their peaks disappearing into the clouds. Strange creatures moved gracefully between the islands. Some had wings like glass, others had long, twisting limbs, and all of them regarded her with curiosity. Kale appeared beside her, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder. "Welcome to the world of Lyria," he said. "It's beautiful, isn't it? But beauty can be dangerous. You must stay alert." Arya nodded, still trying to take it all in. "It's incredible?" she whispered. Kale's expression turned serious. "It is, and it is fragile. The shadows follow us here. If they touch this world, it could be destroyed. That's why you must learn quickly. The light isn't just for protection, it's for balance." Arya frowned. "Balance? What do you mean?" Kale gestured to a floating island nearby. On its surface, a glowing crystal pulsed softly, radiating warmth and light. "Everything in this world is connected. Every action has a reaction. Every thought, every choice, affects the balance. The shadows feed on imbalance, fear, and anger. The light, it preserves balance. That is why it chose you. That is why you must carry it." Arya looked at her glowing wrist and felt the weight of Kale's words. She had never considered that her choices could affect anything beyond herself, and now she realized the responsibility she carried. Fear rose again, but beneath it was determination, a determination to protect this world, to protect the door, to protect the balance that Kale spoke of. A sudden rustling in the distance drew her attention. Dark forms moved swiftly between the floating islands, their shapes shifting and twisting. The shadows had followed them through the door. Kale tightened his grip on her shoulder. "Stay close. Focus on the light." Arya took a deep breath, feeling the warmth pulse stronger beneath her skin. She could feel the light responding to her intent, stretching outward, forming a protective aura around them. The shadows recoiled slightly, hissing and swirling in frustration. "You're learning fast," Kale said quietly. "The light listens to those who believe. Right now, your belief is the strongest weapon you have." Arya's pulse raced, but she felt a surge of confidence. She was no longer the frightened girl who had stumbled through a tear in the sky. She was a seeker, a bearer of light, and the worlds depended on her courage. They moved forward, stepping carefully across the floating islands. Each step required focus and balance, but Arya felt herself growing stronger, more aware. The light guided her. Kale's presence steadied her, and for the first time, she believed that perhaps she could face whatever came next. As they reached the center of the islands, Kale stopped. "We must find the Guardian. The door only opens fully when the Guardian is present. Without it, the shadows can overwhelm us." Arya nodded, determination steady in her chest. She had crossed the door, survived the forest, and faced the shadows. Whatever awaited them next, she would meet it with courage. The journey had only begun, but she was ready to step into the unknown, and as she glanced at the glowing mark on her wrist, she realized something profound. The light was not just a weapon. It was a promise that even in the darkest places, she could find her way. The door of light had brought her to Lyra, and Arya Frost was ready to embrace her destiny. Chapter 4. The whispering compass. Lyra held the alethiometer in her hands, feeling its gentle warmth. It was small, golden, and delicate, yet it seemed alive, pulsing as if it had a heartbeat. A shiver ran through her spine, part excitement, part fear. She had seen this device before, but now it was different. Now it seemed to recognize her, to speak directly to her, and she understood something deep inside. Once a device like this begins to reveal truth, it never stops. It changes everything. Pan, her demon, shifted on her shoulder. His eyes, bright and alert, scanned the room. "Lyra, it's waking," he whispered. Lyra's fingers tightened around the compass. She felt a sudden surge of responsibility, a weight pressing gently but insistently on her chest. "Then we must listen," she said, her voice firm even as her heart raced. Every instinct told her that this moment mattered. The quiet corners of Jordan College seemed to hold their breath. The wind outside paused as if waiting for her next move. She touched the hourglass symbol on the compass. It glowed faintly beneath her fingertips, warning her, signaling urgency. Time was slipping through her fingers, and she could feel it. "Why now?" she whispered. "Why is it responding to me?" Pan transformed into a small ermine, his fur gleaming white in the dim light. "Because you asked a question only truth can answer," A sighed softly. Lyra felt a chill. A was right. Since learning about the missing children, the dangers surrounding her uncle, and the secrets Mrs. Coulter hid, her heart had been silently asking one question: what should I do? And now the alethiometer was answering. She watched the needle quiver, slowly moving, as if waking from sleep. It circled the symbols once, twice, and then stopped at 3. The anchor, the serpent, and the child. Lyra's heart skipped. She could feel the weight of each symbol pressing against her thoughts. The anchor meant safety or something fixed. The serpent whispered of wisdom or danger. The child represented innocence, or perhaps someone like her. "Pan, what does it mean?" she asked, her voice a mixture of awe and fear. Pan hesitated. "Anchor is safety. The serpent is danger or wisdom. And the child could mean innocence or responsibility. Maybe it is you." His small voice carried a gravitas that made Lyra swallow hard. Everything in her chest twisted together: fear, curiosity, courage. She realized that the truth often carries more than one meaning, more than one path. One wrong interpretation, and everything could change. One right choice, and perhaps everything could be saved. Lyra stood and looked out the window, at the rooftops and the distant hills. The world beyond Jordan College seemed bigger now, sharper, and filled with quiet whispers she could almost hear. Somewhere, the answers waited, hidden in danger, mystery, and perhaps hope. "So the compass is telling me that danger and safety are tied to me?" she asked. Pan's small head tilted. "Yes. And it is telling you that your path is yours to walk, that your choices matter." Lyra felt a chill, but it was not fear. It was a spark, the first flame of determination. She had been ordinary until now, but the compass had chosen her. That alone made her life no longer her own. She had to act. She took a deep breath. If this compass chose me, I cannot ignore it. Children are missing. My uncle is trapped. Mrs. Coulter hides secrets. The truth calls me, and I must follow it. Eben, if he don't know the path. Her voice was firmer now, filled with resolve. Pan shifted closer, touching her cheek with his soft fur. We'll follow it together, he said. Lyra felt comfort and courage intertwining. Together, perhaps, they could meet whatever lay ahead. She placed the alethiometer in her pocket. It hummed faintly, almost like a heartbeat she could carry with her, a reminder that truth is never silent, even when the world is. The pull from the compass was subtle at first, a feeling rather than a direction. It was not pointing to a place or a person, but to certainty, to understanding, to the path she was meant to take. Lyra leaned against the window and looked beyond the college. The world was wide, cold, and daunting, but it was waiting. She whispered to herself, north. It was not a guess. It was certainty. Pan's voice broke the silence. Are you ready? Lyra straightened, shoulders squared. I'm ready for whatever comes, she said, and in her voice there was a quiet strength she had never felt before. The journey that had seemed distant, mysterious, and dangerous suddenly felt real. The first step had to be taken, and she was no longer hesitant. The alethiometer pulsed in her pocket. Each tick, each tiny movement of its needle felt like a heartbeat in sync with her own. The device had chosen her, and she would follow it. Every symbol, every vibration, every small nudge carried meaning that she would have to decipher. It was a language of truth, strange and difficult, yet essential. She thought of the children, their faces, innocent and scared, flickered in her mind, of her uncle, trapped by forces she only partly understood, and of Mrs. Coulter, whose secrets seemed to stretch like shadows across the paths of the city. The alethiometer was guiding her, to them or at least, toward understanding. And understanding, she knew, was the first step toward action. Lyra felt the first whisper of fear. The road ahead would not be easy. The north was unknown, filled with dangers that could destroy her if she faltered. But with Pan by her side, and with the compass in her hands or air pocket, she felt courage rising. The fear was not gone, but it was tempered by determination. Whatever comes, she said again, more to herself than to Pan, I will face it. I will not run. The compass pulsed, as if approving her choice. She had taken her first step toward a destiny far greater than she had ever imagined. Sometimes, she realized, the world does not open with grand gestures or loud announcements. Sometimes it opens quietly, subtly, like a small needle pointing the way. A needle that only those brave enough to listen, brave enough to act, can follow. The path was uncertain, the dangers real, and the choices heavy, but Lyra was ready. She turned from the window, her eyes bright with purpose. The journey of the girl with a golden compass had truly begun, not with magic, not with battles, but with quiet determination and the courage to follow truth wherever it led. The north awaited, and somewhere along the frozen paths, answers, challenges, and perhaps hope waited too. Lyra took a final breath, feeling the weight of responsibility settle over her shoulders. It was not a burden. It was power, power to choose, power to act, power to seek truth where others might flee. Pan nuzzled her cheek, a quiet reminder that she was not alone. Together, they would follow the compass wherever it led, through cold, danger, and uncertainty. And as the night deepened, Lyra felt a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. The world had shifted, subtly but completely. She was no longer just a girl wandering the corridors of Jordan College. She was a seeker of truth, a bearer of choices, a small force that could tip the balance in a world filled with shadows. The alethiometer whispered, the compass pointed, and Lyra knew, whatever lay ahead, she would meet it head-on. Her journey had only just begun. Sometimes the world does not shout its secrets. Sometimes it whispers through a small, golden needle that points to the truth only you can follow. Chapter 5. Shadows on the northern road. The first light of dawn spilled over the rooftops of Jordan College. Pale and hesitant, brushing the stone walls with silver, Lyra stood at her window, the golden alethiometer tucked safely in her pocket, feeling the subtle pull of its guidance. The north called to her, not with words, but with a steady tug, as if something urgent waited beyond the familiar streets and quiet gardens of the city. Each heartbeat echoed in her chest, a drum of courage and fear intertwined. She knew the journey would be long and dangerous, but the compass had chosen her, and she could not refuse. Pan stood on her shoulder, his small body alert and tense. "Are you ready?" he asked again, his voice soft but insistent. Lyra nodded. "I have to be," she whispered. The thought of the missing children and her uncle's peril burned in her mind, sharper than the fear of the unknown. She had followed the compass this far. Every step had been small, measured, careful. But now the road stretched wide and uncertain before her. There would be no turning back. Downstairs, the servants moved quietly, unaware of the dangerous path their young mistress was about to take. Lyra's eyes scanned the familiar rooms, one last time the shelves of books, the flickering candlelight, the shadows that always seemed to linger in corners. She wondered if she would ever return, or if the world beyond these walls would change her irrevocably. Perhaps it would. Perhaps she wanted it too. Taking a deep breath, she slipped out the back door, the cold morning air biting gently at her cheeks. The north was out there, vast and endless, and she was walking toward it. The streets were almost empty, save for a few early merchants preparing for the day. Lyra moved quickly but quietly, the alethiometer's pull guiding her steps with subtle certainty. She felt a thrill in this secrecy, the quiet knowledge that every footstep carried her closer to destiny. Pan scampered beside her, tiny paws padding softly against the cobblestones. Every shadow seemed alive, every sound heightened by the stillness of the dawn. Even the distant chimneys and flickering smoke seemed to watch her, as though the city itself knew she had begun a journey unlike any other. As they left the city behind, the landscape widened. Fields stretched in pale ribbons of frost, rivers glimmered under the weak sunlight, and distant hills loomed like silent sentinels. The compass pulled steadily northward, insistent, patient. Lyra's mind raced with questions. What dangers would she face? What truths would the alethiometer reveal next? How could a simple device guide her through a world filled with uncertainty, shadow, and danger? Each question seemed to demand another step, another decision, and each decision felt heavier than the last. They reached the edge of the city as the sun rose fully, burning gold into the morning sky. Lyra paused, taking in the quiet majesty of the world beyond her known life. "It feels endless," she said softly. Pan twitched his small ears, his eyes scanning the horizon. "The north is vast, yes. But remember, Lyra, courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is stepping forward even when the path is unknown." She smiled faintly, comforted by his words. They would need courage. They would need sharp eyes, quick thinking, and the determination to endure every trial that lay ahead. The road ahead twisted through forests and over hills, silent except for the crunch of frost beneath their feet. Shadows moved between trees, though Lyra could not tell if they were real or the product of imagination heightened by the early light and the tension coiled in her chest. The alethiometer hummed faintly in her pocket, a gentle vibration that seemed to respond to her thoughts. It was not a map, not directions, but a guide that whispered of choices, consequences, and the truth hidden in every step. Each pull and shift of the needle reminded her that she was being watched not just by friends or enemies, but by the destiny that had chosen her. As the sun climbed higher, a figure emerged from the forest path ahead. Lyra froze, her heart skipping a beat. The figure was cloaked, tall, moving with a quiet, deliberate pace. The alethiometer tugged sharply toward the stranger, and Lyra felt a rush of fear and recognition. Whoever this was, they were significant, perhaps friend, perhaps foe, perhaps both. She glanced at Pan. "We have to be careful," she whispered. He nodded, his fur bristling slightly. They slowed, moving cautiously along the path, keeping shadows at their backs and eyes alert for any sudden movement. The figures stopped when they saw Lyra, tilting their heads slightly. A calm, deliberate presence radiated from them, and Lyra felt instinctively that they were not here to cause immediate harm. Yet the sense of caution lingered. The alethiometer pulsed again, warm and insistent. "Pay attention, Chosiwaiseli." Lyra's lips parted. Who are you?" she asked, her voice steady despite the tension. The figure remained silent for a moment, then raised a hand in acknowledgement. The gesture was simple, yet heavy with meaning. Lyra's mind spun with possibilities. This could be a guide or a test. The North, it seemed, would not reveal its secrets either. As the hours passed, the road became steeper, winding into hills that caught the sunlight and reflected it in dazzling patterns. Lyra felt the pull of the alethiometer grow stronger, sharper, like a heartbeat echoing through her veins. Each step she took felt like a conversation with the device itself, each choice a dialogue of trust and instinct. The North was not just a place, it was a crucible, testing her courage, her resolve, and her understanding of truth. And every pull of the needle reminded her that the journey was hers alone to navigate, yet not hers alone to endure. She had Pan. She had the compass. And, she realized, she had herself. By evening, the sky turned pink and orange, spilling colors across the horizon like fire. The shadows lengthened, and the air grew colder. Lyra paused on a hilltop, looking down at the winding road that stretched toward the unknown. She felt exhaustion press against her limbs, yet an exhilaration ran through her, brighter than fatigue. Every trial, every question, every whisper of the alethiometer had brought her to this point, and she knew, deep inside, that the North was more than a direction. It was a test, a challenge, and perhaps a revelation. Lyra took a deep breath, letting the crisp air fill her lungs. "We keep going," she said. Pan twitched his ears. "Always forward," he replied. As night fell, they made camp beneath a tall pine. The alethiometer lay beside Lyra, glowing faintly in the dim light, as if it were resting after a day of guiding and whispering. She sat cross-legged, thinking of the figure they had met, the miles behind them, and the path that still stretched endlessly northward. Danger was real, as was uncertainty, but so was hope, courage, and the quiet knowledge that she was walking the path she had chosen. She placed her hand on the compass. "I trust you," she whispered. The needle pulsed softly, almost like a heartbeat answering back. Lyra and Pan settled for the night, the first stretch of their northern journey behind them, the vast unknown ahead. Every sound of the forest, the rustle of leaves, the distant cry of an owl, the wind whispering through branches, seemed to speak of secrets waiting to be discovered. The North held mysteries, dangers, and truths that would test her at every step. But she was ready. The girl with the golden compass had begun to walk the path of destiny, and there would be no turning back. The road to truth is never easy. It is paved with choices, shadowed by uncertainty, and lit only by courage. And only those who dare to step forward will ever know where it leads. Chapter 6. The Frozen River. The cold wind bit at Lyra's cheeks as dawn crept over the northern hills. She shivered, pulling her cloak tighter around her small frame. Pan nestled close, his warmth offering comfort against the biting frost. The alethiometer pulsed softly in her pocket, a heartbeat guiding her forward, pulling her steps along a path that stretched endlessly into the unknown. Every mile felt heavier than the last, but Lyra's resolve had grown stronger with each passing hour. The North was unforgiving, yet it was calling her, whispering secrets she had to uncover. She could not ignore it. The road twisted past frozen streams and snow-covered forests. Trees stretched toward the sky, their branches bare and brittle, creaking softly as the wind passed through them. Shadows fell long and sharp, and the forest seemed alive with quiet, watchful eyes. Lyra felt the pull of the compass intensify, tugging her toward something she could not yet see. Each step she took was a silent dialogue with the elite. It was not showing her the exact path, but it was guiding her instincts, warning her of hidden dangers, pointing toward choices she had yet to understand. Hours passed, and the landscape grew more desolate. The forest thinned, revealing a frozen river that gleamed under the weak sunlight like a silver ribbon. The alethiometer's needle swung with more urgency now, quivering as though anxious. Lyra approached the edge carefully, studying the river's surface. It was solid ice, but faint cracks spiderwebbed across its expanse. The compass seemed to pull her forward, insisting she cross. Panic rose briefly in her chest. A misstep could be fatal. Yet she could not turn back. Not now. Not when the path ahead held the truth she had sought since the day the alethiometer chose her. Pan's voice was calm but firm. Lyra, remember what courage is. Fear is not weakness. It is the compass that points us to action. Lyra took a deep breath and tested the ice with her foot. It held. Slowly, cautiously, she began to cross, the thin layer of frost groaning beneath her weight. Pan followed, his small paws silent. With every step, Lyra felt the cold seeping through her boots, her legs trembling, but she kept moving, guided by the steady pulse of the needle's gentle vibration was a reassurance, a promise that she was following the right path, even if it was dangerous. Midway across a loud crack echoed, and a sharp tremor shook the ice. Lyra froze, heart racing. The surface beneath her shifted, threatening to break, but she steadied herself, bending low to distribute her weight. Pan hissed softly, a warning. The alethiometer pulsed urgently, stronger than ever. Lyra's mind raced. She remembered the symbols from before the anchor. The serpent, the child. Each represented something more than a warning. They were lessons, guides to choices that could save lives or seal fates. With careful steps, she pressed forward, trusting the compass to guide her to safety. At last, she reached solid ground. Her legs trembled with relief, and she sank onto the snow, letting out a breath she didn't know she had been holding. The frozen river lay behind her, a test of courage overcome. Yet as she looked back, the wind whispered through the bare trees, carrying a warning she could not ignore. The north was not merely cold. It was alive, and it watched those who walked its paths. Every choice mattered. Every step could be the difference between life and peril. As the afternoon light waned, a figure appeared in the distance, light as scinted, her breath clouding in the freezing air. It was a man tall, wrapped in heavy furs, his face hidden beneath a hood. He moved with purpose, each step deliberate. The alethiometer vibrated sharply, pulling her toward the stranger. Was he a guide, a threat, or both? She tightened her cloak, instinct telling her caution was wise. Pan's small body tensed beside her, fur bristling slightly. "Stay alert," he whispered. Lyra nodded. She knew the north held no mercy for the careless or the unprepared. The man stopped a short distance away and raised a gloved hand in greeting. There was no threat in his posture, yet his presence was imposing, almost regal. Lyra stepped forward cautiously. "Who are you?" she asked. The man's voice was calm, measured, and carried a weight of authority. "I am a traveler, like yourself," he said, "but I know what you seek, and I can help you if you are willing to trust." Lyra hesitated, measuring the truth in his words. The alethiometer pulsed steadily, and she felt a subtle reassurance. Trust, but remain cautious. They traveled together through the late afternoon, the stranger leading the way along a narrower path, one hidden from ordinary travelers. Lyra listened intently as he spoke of the north, its dangers, its secrets, and the creatures that moved unseen through the frozen lands. She learned quickly that knowledge was as vital as courage. The compass pulsed continually, affirming some warnings, questioning others. Every vibration was a lesson, every needle movement a guide. Pan stayed close, silent but watchful, sensing what Lyra could not. Night fell rapidly, colder than anything Lyra had felt before. Stars glittered sharply in the sky, frozen diamonds above a landscape both beautiful and perilous. They found a small hollow between the trees to rest. The stranger lit a small fire, the warmth pushing back against the biting cold. Lyra pulled the alethiometer from her pocket, studying its glowing face. Each symbol seemed to whisper secrets she was only beginning to understand. The anchor for stability, the serpent for wisdom or danger, the child for innocence or responsibility. Each choice she made would be influenced by these truths. Lyra lay back on the snow, exhausted yet alert. She realized that the North tested not only the body but the mind and heart as well. Every step forward was a decision, every breath a negotiation with fear. The compass had guided her safely across the frozen river, through shadows, and into the wilderness. But she knew these trials were only the beginning. The real challenge lay ahead, truths waiting to be revealed, dangers that would demand every ounce of courage, and choices that could alter the lives of many. Pan curled beside her, whispering softly, "Rest, Lyra. Tomorrow will be another test. But remember, you are not alone. You carry truth with you. The compass guides, but your heart decides." Lyra closed her eyes, letting the warmth of the small fire and the presence of her demon soothe her mind. The alethiometer hummed quietly, as if echoing Pan's words. The path was treacherous, but it was hers to walk, hers to shape with courage, wit, and the steady pulse of truth. And so, under the frozen stars of the northern sky, Lyra slept lightly, knowing that the journey ahead would be full of shadows, tests, and revelations. Yet she was ready. The girl with the golden compass had faced her first real challenge, crossed the frozen river, and walked the northern roads. Her destiny, shaped by courage and guided by truth, awaited, and she would meet it, step by step, with Pan by her side and the alethiometer in her pocket, whispering its quiet guidance. The North tests those who dare enter. It challenges courage, measures resolve, and reveals the truths that only the brave can face, and only those who follow the compass can hope to uncover them. Chapter 7. The Hidden Valley. The morning sun rose pale over the northern horizon, casting long shadows across the snow-covered hills. Lyra tightened her cloak, her breath forming small clouds in the icy air. The alethiometer pulsed steadily in her pocket, guiding her with subtle insistence. Every vibration felt like a heartbeat, steady and alive, reminding her that the path ahead, though dangerous, was hers to follow. Pan stirred on her shoulder, alert and ready, eyes scanning the landscape. The North was not, just cold, it was alive, shifting, and full of secrets that demanded caution and courage. They descended a slope into a hidden valley, a place the stranger had spoken of the night before. The valley was small, tucked between jagged cliffs, its floor carpeted with frost, and dotted with evergreen trees, dusted in silver. Lyra marveled at its beauty, yet she felt the unease that always came with wonder. Beauty in the North often hid danger. She had learned that lesson with the frozen river and the shadows along the road. The compass pulsed stronger here, almost gained, as if warning her that this place was important, not just a rest stop, but a turning point. The stranger moved ahead, silent and deliberate, leading them toward the center of the valley where a small, steaming spring bubbled beneath a ring of rocks. The warmth from the water broke the frost in the air around them, and Lyra felt a small relief in the biting cold. She knelt to touch the edge of the spring, letting the warmth seep into her fingers. The alethiometer vibrated gently, and she knew the pull she had felt all morning was connected to this place. Here, perhaps, she would find answers or new questions that would test her more than ever before. Pan circled the area, sniffing and listening. "Stay alert," he murmured. "This valley may be hidden, but it is not empty. There are eyes that watch, even places that seem peaceful." Lyra nodded, understanding that, in the North, stillness was often a mask. She felt the pull of the alethiometer stronger now, the needle shifting toward a symbol she did not recognize. Her heart thumped as she tried to interpret it. Was it a warning? A promise? A direction? She could not know yet, but she had learned to trust the small device's quiet voice, even when her mind could not comprehend its meaning fully. The stranger stopped beside her and gestured toward the spring. "The valley is protected," he said quietly. "Few know of it, and fewer still can find it without guidance. But those who enter it are tested. Your courage, your heart, your choices, they will be measured here." Lyra's pulse quickened. She had faced danger, uncertainty, and fear before. But this felt different. It felt like a threshold, a place where the North itself judged those who walked its paths. She placed a hand on the alethiometer. "Guide me," she whispered. "Show me the way." A sudden rustle in the trees made her spin. Shadows shifted, and a figure emerged, a child, small, shivering, with wide, fearful eyes. Lyra's chest tightened. The compass pulsed strongly, and she felt its urgency. The child's presence here was no accident. Lyra knelt down slowly, her voice soft and steady. "It's all right. We won't hurt you. You're safe." The child hesitated, then stepped closer, drawn by the calm in her tone. Pan moved beside her, protective and alert, yet not. Lyra extended a hand, and the child took it slowly, trembling but trusting. The alethiometer's needles spun gently, then rested on 3 symbols she recognized from before: the anchor, the serpent, and the child. Lyra understood then that this valley, this encounter, was part of the path she had been guided to. The child represented more than innocence. He represented choice, responsibility, and the consequences of action. Lyra's heart ached with both fear and resolve. She had been chosen by the compass, but now she realized that others, too, were guided by fate in ways she could not yet see. The stranger stepped closer. "This child has knowledge that may aid your journey," he said. "But they must trust you, and you must protect them, as the compass demands." Lyra felt the weight of responsibility settle over her shoulders. Every step she had taken had led to this moment. Every choice mattered. She tightened her grip on the alethiometer, letting its warmth seep into her fingers. It pulsed in response, as if affirming her resolve. As the day stretched on, Lyra and the stranger helped the child settle near the spring. The warmth of the water offered a temporary comfort against the harsh north, but the alethiometer's pull remained, insistent and urgent. The path was not finished. Answers waited beyond the valley, beyond the hills and forests, in places where courage would be tested and truth would be revealed only to those who dared. Lyra realized that every trial so far, crossing frozen rivers, walking through shadows, facing uncertainty, was preparation. The North demanded more than bravery. It demanded wisdom, patience, and a heart steady enough to follow truth without faltering. Night approached, painting the valley in shades of silver and blue. Lyra sat near the child, keeping them warm with her cloak, while Pan perched nearby, eyes scanning the darkened forest. The alethiometer glowed faintly, the needle quivering as if sensing the tension in the air. Lyra understood then that the journey was far from over. The compass would continue to guide her, but it was up to her to interpret its whispers, to make choices that could affect not only her fate, but the fate of others she would meet along the way. She looked at the child's wide eyes, full of both fear and curiosity. Lyra felt a surge of protectiveness she had not known before. The North had tested her courage, her determination, and now it demanded her compassion. She understood that leadership, like truth, was not about power or knowledge. Alone it was about the choices she made when others depended on her. The alethiometer pulsed, steady and insistent, as if acknowledging her understanding. Lyra lay back on the snow, exhaustion pressing against her, yet her mind remained alert. She reflected on everything she had learned. The courage to step forward, the responsibility carried by truth, the importance of protecting those who could not protect themselves. The North was harsh, unforgiving, and full of tests, but it was also a teacher. And Lyra, with Pan by her side and the alethiometer in her pocket, was ready for whatever lesson came next. The North shapes those who dare to walk its roads. It tests courage, measures heart, and reveals the truths hidden in shadow. And only those who follow with wisdom and strength can hope to endure it. Chapter 8. The mountain pass. The morning light was dim and cold as Lyra awoke, her breath fogging in the crisp northern air. The hidden valley lay quiet, bathed in silver frost, and the small fire they had made the night before was nothing but embers now. She felt the gentle pulse of the alethiometer in her pocket, a heartbeat that seemed to speak to her, reminding her that every step forward mattered. Pan stirred on her shoulder, his small eyes alert and ears twitching at the slightest sound. The north was vast, and the mountains ahead loomed like silent giants, their peaks hidden in a blanket of snow and mist. Lyra rose, brushing snow from her cloak, and looked toward the pass. The path narrowed and twisted through jagged cliffs, the wind howling through the rocky gaps. The stranger from the valley approached, his figure tall and composed, despite the cold. "The pass is dangerous," he said, voice calm but firm. "Steady footing is vital, and alertness even more so. One misstep could mean injury, or worse." Lyra nodded, gripping her cloak tighter, and she felt the alethiometer vibrate sharply. It was a warning, but also an encouragement. She would need both caution and courage to navigate this section of the journey. The path was treacherous from the very start. Loose stones slid underfoot, and the narrow ledges overlooked cliffs that fell into unseen depths. Lyra's heart raced as she tested each step, her mind focused on balance and care. Pan clung close, his small body moving with precision and instinct. The compass pulsed steadily, guiding her with subtle vibrations. It did not tell her where to step, but it reassured her that she was following the right path. Hours passed as they climbed higher, the wind growing harsher, carrying biting frost that stung exposed skin. Lyra's legs ached, and each step demanded more strength than the last. Yet she pressed on, her resolve unwavering. The child from the valley stayed close, trusting her completely, and Lyra felt a deep sense of responsibility. The alethiometer pulsed warmly, a reminder that choices mattered, not just for herself, but for those who depended on her. Every movement, every decision, was part of the journey the compass had set her upon. Suddenly, the wind shifted, carrying a strange sound across the cliffs. Lyra froze, straining to listen. It was a low, echoing howl, unlike anything she had heard before. Pan hissed softly, his body tense. The stranger motioned for silence. "The pass is not empty," he said quietly. "Creatures of the north move in shadows and mist. They sense fear, and hesitation makes them bolder." Lyra's heart pounded, but she forced herself to remain calm. Courage, she remembered, was not the absence of fear, but the strength to act despite it. The alethiometer pulsed strongly, almost impatiently, urging her forward. As they navigated a particularly narrow ledge, a shadow moved across the snow below. Lyra caught a glimpse of dark fur and sharp eyes. Her breath caught in her throat, but she did not panic. She slowed her steps deliberately, feeling the pulse of the compass guide her balance and timing. Pan crouched low, ready to spring if necessary, his small body a shield and warning in one. The stranger whispered instructions, guiding them through the treacherous section with care and precision. Every movement felt like a conversation between instinct, courage, and guidance. The alethiometer, the silent mediator. By midday, the pass grew steeper and more narrow, the cliffs rising sharply on either side. The wind screamed through the gaps, carrying ice and snow that stung their faces. Lyra paused to rest for a moment, her hands gripping the rocks for support. She looked down at the valley they had left behind, small and distant, and felt the weight of the journey pressing upon her. The alethiometer vibrated steadily, reminding her that the path ahead, though difficult, was necessary. Every challenge was preparation for the truths waiting beyond the mountains. As they climbed, the shadows deepened, and Lyra felt the first real test of endurance. The narrow ledges required absolute concentration. One slip could be fatal. The compass pulsed sharply, as if warning her of a hidden danger. She adjusted her steps, moving slowly, deliberately, aware of every pebble, every crevice, every potential hazard. Pan stayed close, whispering softly, his instincts perfectly aligned with her movements. The child followed, trusting her completely, and Lyra realized that courage was not just for herself, but for those she protected. By late afternoon, they reached a ledge overlooking a frozen waterfall, its icy surface glinting in the pale sunlight. Lyra marveled at its beauty, but she knew it was treacherous. The alethiometer pulsed urgently, warning her to remain cautious. The stranger pointed to a narrow path along the cliff, barely wide enough for one person. Lyra took a deep breath and began carefully across, testing each step, feeling the pulse of the compass guide her instincts. Pan scurried beside her, vigilant, alert to every sound and movement. A sudden crack echoed across the pass. Ice shifted beneath the waterfall, sending a small cascade of snow and rock tumbling down. Lyra's heart leaped, but she held firm, trusting the alethiometer, her instincts, and her courage. The child clung tightly to her side, eyes wide but trusting. Step by step, they moved forward, overcoming the frozen obstacle. The wind howled, the cliffs loomed, and the path remained narrow and dangerous. Yet Lyra felt a growing confidence. Every step was a triumph, every choice a lesson. As evening approached, they reached a small plateau, a place where the cliffs opened slightly to reveal a distant view of the mountains beyond. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Lyra sank onto the snow, exhausted but exhilarated. She felt the pulse of the alethiometer calming, as if approving her decisions. The child rested beside her. Pan curled on her shoulder, and the stranger looked at the horizon, a silent guardian. Lyra realized then that the north was not merely a place of cold and danger. It was a teacher, testing courage, patience, and wisdom. Every challenge she faced, every choice she made, shaped her understanding of truth and responsibility. The mountains had tested her endurance and resolve, but they had also strengthened her, preparing her for the trials that lay ahead. The path was far from over, and dangers awaited, but Lyra felt a quiet certainty that she was ready. Night fell, cold and silent, blanketing the plateau in frost. Lyra pulled her cloak tighter and studied the alethiometer, its golden face glowing faintly in the dark. Every symbol, every vibration, every subtle pull reminded her that her journey was not only physical, but also a journey of courage, heart, and understanding. The mountains had been a trial, but they were also a preparation for the truths waiting beyond. Lyra closed her eyes briefly, letting the quiet night and the pulse of the compass fill her with resolve. The north tests the body, sharpens the mind, and measures the heart. Those who endure its paths and follow truth, guided by courage, will uncover the secrets hidden in shadow. And only those willing to face fear with determination can hope to walk beyond its peaks. Chapter 9. The Shadowed Forests. The wind howled through the mountain pass, carrying with it the first whispers of a forest that lay beyond the peaks. Lyra tightened her cloak, feeling the chill bite through the fabric. Pan shifted on her shoulder, small eyes scanning the darkness ahead. The alethiometer pulsed steadily in her pocket, a heartbeat guiding her steps through the cold and uncertain terrain. The north was changing. The mountains gave way to dense trees, shadows falling thick and long, and Lyra knew this next challenge would be unlike any she had faced before. The forest seemed alive. Each branch and leaf trembled in the wind, casting patterns of light and shadow across the snow-covered ground. Lyra could feel the pulse of the alethiometer quicken as they entered, almost as if it were warning her of hidden dangers. The stranger moved ahead, silent and deliberate, his footsteps careful on the frost-hardened earth. Lyra followed closely, mindful of every sound, every movement, every whisper of the forest that seemed to watch them. The child from the valley stayed close, trusting her completely, and Lyra felt the weight of responsibility settle deep in her chest. Hours passed, in tense silence. The trees grew thicker, the shadows deeper. The path wound in confusing patterns, and the wind carried strange, distant sounds, cries, rustlings, and the faint echo of voices she could not recognize. Lyra's heart pounded, but she forced herself to remain calm. Pan pressed close, his small body a shield of alertness. The alethiometer pulsed continuously, a steady reassurance amidst uncertainty. Each vibration reminded her that the compass was a guide, that choices mattered, and that courage would be tested in ways she could not yet foresee. Suddenly, a dark figure stepped onto the path ahead. Lyra froze, heart skipping a beat. The stranger raised a hand, signaling caution. The figure was tall, cloaked in dark furs, face obscured beneath a hood. There was no immediate threat in its stance, yet the sense of danger was undeniable. The alethiometer pulsed sharply, vibrating urgently as if demanding attention. Lyra's fingers tightened around her cloak, her mind racing with questions. Was this a guide, a task, or an enemy? The figure spoke, voice low and measured. "Travelers of the North, the forest tests all who enter. Your courage, your heart, and your choices will be judged." Lyra's pulse quickened. She remembered the frozen river, the mountain pass, the hidden valley, all trials that had demanded courage, trust, and careful decisions. This forest was another crucible, and she understood that every action mattered. The alethiometer vibrated strongly, almost impatiently, urging her to listen and act with clarity. Lyra stepped forward cautiously. "We are guided by truth," she said, her voice steady despite the tension. The figure nodded, stepping aside to reveal a narrow path that wound deeper into the shadowed forest. "Then walk carefully," it said. "The forest reveals itself only to those who follow with courage and heart." Pan pressed close, small body tense, ready for any threat. Lyra held the child's hand, feeling the weight of responsibility more acutely than ever. Every step, every choice, would shape not only their journey, but the fate of those who depended on her. The path became narrower, the trees crowding in closer. Snow fell lightly, muffling their footsteps, and the shadows deepened with each passing hour. Lyra could hear strange noises, the snap of twigs, the rustle of unseen creatures, and whispers carried by the wind. She kept moving, relying on the compass and her instincts. The alethiometer pulsed in response, affirming some decisions, questioning others. Every vibration was a lesson, every movement a guide. Courage alone was not enough. Wisdom, patience, and careful observation were required to survive and continue. At dusk, they reached a small clearing. A faint glow illuminated the area, revealing a circle of stones that seemed ancient and deliberate. Lyra felt the pulse of the alethiometer quicken, vibrating urgently. This place was significant. The stranger gestured toward the stones. "The forest tests those who enter. To pass, you must understand its message. The alethiometer will guide you, but interpretation is your choice. Choose wrong, and the path may close forever." Lyra felt a chill run through her, but she knelt beside the stones, placing her hand on the frosty surface. The pulse of the compass seemed to speak, whispering secrets she had not yet learned to understand fully. Pan pressed close, eyes scanning the edges of the clearing. The child clung to Lyra, trusting her completely. Lyra realized then that courage was intertwined with responsibility. The North tested not only strength, but compassion, understanding, and the ability to protect others. Every step forward, every choice she made, would have consequences. She studied the stones, tracing their patterns, feeling the subtle vibrations of truth beneath her fingers. The alethiometer pulsed steadily, guiding her through this silent challenge. Night fell, deeper than ever, wrapping the forest in shadows. Lyra built a small fire in the center of the clearing, its light offering warmth and a fragile sense of safety. The alethiometer lay beside her, glowing faintly, a reminder that truth was near but required interpretation. She reflected on the lessons of the journey so far. The courage to cross frozen rivers, the patience to navigate mountain passos, the compassion to care for those who could not protect themselves. This forest demanded all of it together. Hours passed in tense silence. The shadows of the forest moved as if alive, shifting and curling around the edges of the firelight. Lyra held the child close, listening to the subtle pulse of the alethiometer, feeling its guidance in every subtle vibration. She knew that the forest was a test of perception and heart, a place where choices mattered more than strength. Each step, each decision, could alter their path forever. As the night deepened, Lyra felt a quiet determination settle over her. She understood that the North was a teacher, testing body, mind, and heart. The forest's shadows were not just obstacles, they were lessons, and she, with Pan by her side and the compass in her pocket, would endure. She whispered softly, "We will face whatever comes, together." The alethiometer pulsed warmly, as if approving her resolve. The forest of the North reveals truths only to those who listen with courage, see with clarity, and act with heart. Shadows may hide danger, but they also hide knowledge, waiting for the brave to uncover it. Chapter 10. The final journey. Dawn broke, over the shadowed forest. The first rays of sunlight piercing the dense canopy and scattering gold across the frost-laden ground. Lyra stood at the edge of the trees, the alethiometer warm in her pocket, vibrating softly as if urging her onward. Pan perched alertly on her shoulder, eyes scanning the path ahead. The north stretched before her, vast, wild, and full of both peril and promise. After rivers, mountains, valleys, and forests, this was the final stretchy journey that would test every lesson she had learned, every ounce of courage, wisdom, and heart she had gathered along the way. The child from the hidden valley walked close, their hand in hers, trusting her completely. Lyra felt the full weight of responsibility. She had learned that the alethiometer guided, but did not decide. The choices were hers alone. Every step, every action, carried meaning, rippling outward in ways she could not yet see. The compass pulsed with steady reassurance, a quiet heartbeat she could follow even in the most uncertain moments. The path led them to a frozen plain, vast and open, where the wind swept relentlessly across the snow. The sky was a pale gray, heavy with clouds, and the distant horizon seemed endless. Lyra hesitated for a moment, feeling fear that had haunted her since the beginning of the journey. But she remembered the lessons of the mountains, the frozen river, the shadowed forest. Courage was not the absence of fear, she reminded herself. It was the determination to move forward despite it. Step by step, they crossed the plain. The wind tugged at their cloaks, and snow stung their faces, but Lyra kept her gaze fixed on the horizon. The alethiometer pulsed gently, guiding her through invisible currents of danger and warning. Pan remained vigilant, small body poised to defend, eyes alert for even the slightest movement. The child's trust grounded her, reminding her that her choices affected more than herself. Every decision had weight. Every moment was a test of heart as much as of skill. Suddenly, a shape emerged from the swirling snow, a massive figure, cloaked in shadows, moving with deliberate power. Lyra's heart leaped, and the alethiometer pulsed urgently. This was the final challenge, the last obstacle before the truths she sought could be revealed. She drew herself up, voice steady, despite the fear threading through her chest. "We are not afraid," she said, more to herself than the figure. "We follow truth." The shadowed figure halted, observing. Then it spoke, voice deep and resonant, carrying the weight of the north itself. "You have come far, child of courage. You have faced rivers, mountains, valleys, and forests. You have protected others, trusted the compass, and followed your heart. Yet the final truth awaits. Will you face it, knowing it may change you forever?" Lyra swallowed hard. She had known from the beginning that the journey would demand everything, and now the moment had arrived. She nodded, feeling the pulse of the alethiometer steady against her fingers. "I am ready," she said. The figure stepped aside, revealing a small clearing where the snow glimmered like crystal. At the center stood a pedestal, carved from ice and stone, ancient and silent. On it lay an object wrapped in golden cloth. The alethiometer pulsed strongly now, vibrating as if insisting she move forward. Lyra's fingers trembled slightly, but she stepped into the clearing, Pan close, the child following cautiously. Every step felt weighted with destiny, every breath a silent prayer for courage. She reached the pedestal and carefully lifted the cloth. Beneath it lay a small, golden key, delicate, yet radiant with an inner light. The alethiometer's pulse quickened, almost jubilant, and Lyra understood immediately. This key was not merely an object. It was a symbol, a tool, a choice. It represented knowledge, responsibility, and the power to unlock hidden truths both in the world and within herself. The compass had guided her here, but what she chose to do next would define the path forward. The shadowed figure spoke again, voice calm and deep. "The key is yours. It unlocks more than doors, it unlocks understanding. What you do with it will shape not only your fate, but the lives of those who follow. Will you use it wisely?" Lyra's heart raced, but she felt a quiet clarity. She had learned the lessons of the journey. Courage in the face of danger, patience through uncertainty, wisdom in choice, and compassion for those who could not protect themselves. With Pan perched on her shoulder and the child at her side, she understood that power was meaningful only when paired with heart. Lyra lifted the key, feeling its warmth seep into her hands. The alethiometer pulsed in harmony, a quiet affirmation that she had grown, learned, and been prepared for this moment. She knew that the journey was not over. The north still held mysteries, challenges, and shadows, but she had reached a threshold. The courage, insight, and compassion she had gathered would guide her through whatever lay ahead. The shadowed figure stepped back, fading slowly into the swirling wind and snow. The north watches, guides, and tests, it said. Those who endure and follow truth will find their path. Remember these, child of courage. The journey is never truly complete, but each choice brings clarity. Lyra watched until the figure disappeared entirely, leaving only the sound of wind through the snow and the soft pulse of the alethiometer in her pocket. Night fell over the frozen plain, and Lyra, Pan, and the child made a small camp. The stars glittered above, sharp and clear in the cold northern sky. Lyra held the key in her hand, feeling its weight not as a burden, but as a responsibility and a promise. The journey had tested her in every way, physically, mentally, and emotionally, but it had also shaped her into someone capable of understanding truth, making difficult choices, and protecting those who depended on her. As she drifted into sleep, Lyra felt a quiet certainty settle over her. The north had revealed its lessons, guiding her through shadow, snow, and uncertainty. The alethiometer pulsed softly beside her, a heartbeat of truth she could carry into every choice to come. She understood that life itself was a series of journeys, each requiring courage, heart, and wisdom, and though the path ahead was still unknown, she was ready. The north tests those who walk its roads. It measures courage, sharpens wisdom, and reveals truth only to the brave. And those who endure, who act with heart, and follow the quiet guidance of destiny, will discover not just the path ahead, but the strength within themselves.